The United Nations is an intergovernmental organization that aims to maintain international peace and security, develop friendly relations among nations, achieve international cooperation, and be a center for harmonizing the actions of nations. The United Nations Security Council is one of 6 principal organs of the United Nations charged with ensuring international peace and security, recommending the admission of new UN members to the General Assembly and approving any changes to the UN Charter. Its powers include establishing peacekeeping operations, enacting international sanctions, and authorizing military action. The UNSC is the only UN body with authority to issue binding decisions on member states. They are called resolutions.
Resolution 1441 stated that Iraq was in material breach of the ceasefire terms presented under the terms of Resolution 687. Iraq's breaches related not only to weapons of mass destruction, WMD, but also the known construction of prohibited types and missiles, the purchase of imports of prohibited armaments, and the continuing refusal of Iraq to compensate Kuwait for the widespread looting conducted by its troops during the 1990 and 1991 invasion and occupation. The resolution itself never mentioned a war and only required Iraq to support inspections by UNMOVIC and IAEA. On 12 September 2002, US President George Bush addressed the General Assembly and outlined a catalogue of complaints against the Iraqi government.
This included the fact that Iraq supports terrorist organizations that direct violence against Iran, Israel, and Western governments, and that some Al-Qaeda terrorists escaped from Afghanistan are known to be in Iraq. Iraqi production and use of weapons of mass destruction are in violations of UN resolutions. Iraq flagrantly violated the terms of the weapons inspections program before discontinuing it altogether. Following the speech, intensive negotiations began with other members of the Security Council. 3 permanent members of the Council were known to have misgivings about an invasion of Iraq. In the meantime, Iraq, while denying all charges, announced that it would permit the re-entry of United Nations armed inspectors into Iraq. The United States characterized this as a ploy by Iraq and continued to call for a Security Council resolution which would authorize the use of military force. The resolution text was drafted jointly by the United States and the United Kingdom, the result of 8 weeks of tumultuous negotiations, particularly with Russia and France. We must notice that France questioned the phrase "serious consequences" and stated repeatedly that any material breach found by the inspectors should not automatically lead to war. Instead, the UN should pass another resolution deciding on the course of action.
On November 8, 2002, the Security Council adopted Resolution 1441 unanimously by 15 votes to 0, giving Resolution 1441 broader support than the 1990 resolution of the Gulf War. Nevertheless, some politicians were still worried that the resolution would authorize war under certain circumstances, quickly reassured by other representatives present at the meeting. Then there was the American invasion of Iraq. This military intrusion was initially intended to oust Saddam Hussein's government from power, supposedly in possession of weapons of mass destruction. But democracy did not come. Iraq has been living since 2003 in a climate of permanent war, always under the pressure of a terrorist group which has proclaimed itself as Islamic State of Iraq and which shows terror by face in the regions of Syria and Iraq, but also in Turkey, Libya and Western Europe. The expansion of this terrorist group contributed to the most serious migration crisis since World War II, prompting millions of people to flee their homes. 18 years after the invasion of Iraq, millions of people died, and officials are starting to admit their mistakes and confess that the weapons of mass destruction mentioned to start the war did not exist. Unfortunately, many people will still have to bear the brunt of the consequences of this decision.